Hair from splines is a specialized form of hair, and it's really most useful in cases where you want long flowing hair, but you also want a lot of control over the hair length for animation purposes. So a simple example we've got here is the character's head, and what we've done is created a NURBS grid contouring her head profile where we want the hair to actually exist. So because it's a NURBS surface, what we can do is extract isocurves off the surface in particular areas and build the hair from curves off those source curves. So what I did was I set my selection over here to V iso line, and in that way I can quickly select iso curves off the surface anywhere I want. And then we can go to curves, extract from surface to actually extract those curves. And I'm going to do the same thing over on this side. Actually, we do want the U iso line, so we can select them in any direction, either the U or the V direction. So I'll select 3 curves there and do the same thing, extract from surface. Then we can just hide our source mesh here. And we've got a nice profile of the curves. And now to create the actual hair, we just select the curves in consecutive order, either from left to right or right to left, whatever the case, and do hair from curves. And there we go. Let's just hide the mesh so we can see the hair better. So you can see what's been created is a thin ribbon-like sheet of hair that extends from the first curve to the last curve. And it doesn't really have any thickness to it. To add some thickness, we can actually go on the hair object and we'll do a strand multiplication. So what that does, it creates a duplicate hair. If I put 2, it'll create 1 hair for where every existing hair is. And then we can splay it out. So what we're doing is offsetting it basically in position. So in that way we can give the hair some volume. Another great thing with the hair from curves is the fact that I can go and take my source curves, and if we move this around, you can see that the actual hair follows fairly precisely where my source curve is deforming. So in this way, you're able to animate the source curves and get the long hair following the position exactly, which is pretty useful for special effects and more complicated kind of hair shots. If we actually look at our source curves here, and what I did was I set up a quick IK chain in there. So what we could do is actually use IK to deform the source mesh, and then we can have the source curves on top adding a secondary layer of animation. And the really cool thing is if we select the hair and apply dynamics to that, we have a third layer of animation now. So you can have your IK deforming the mesh of the hair, and that in turn forms the source curves, which moves the hair, and then you have a third layer of dynamics on the hair, which basically creates the realism associated with real hair, where it's always reacting to wind or gravity and things like that. So a couple of the shortcomings with hair from curves, because there's no source mesh, we can't transfer maps to hair from curves. So for example, if you want to transfer the UV set from a source mesh to the hair, you can't really do that because there is no source mesh. So what you have to do is actually create the UV set on the hair through render tree using the source curves to create a UV domain. And additional things like density maps or cut maps aren't possible with hair from curves because, again, we can't transfer weight maps. But overall, like I mentioned, this is an ideal solution for doing complex hair effects where a lot of control is needed over the hair for animation.